This is Kenichi Agagasi, and I apologize. I'm in transit picking up my kids from daycare, and so I'm not able to be on the screen at this time, but I will be joining in the next 20 minutes or so. Welcome to the December meeting for the BAC. And it's the holidays, so a few folks are in transit, but we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. It's about 5:34. I would love to maybe just have us do a quick round of introduction, very quickly, and then one thing that we're thankful for during this very wet season. So I'll start off. I'll model. My name is Kenichi Onyagasi, and I'm currently the co-chair of the BAC. And in this season, I'm thankful for a warm house that I can go into at the end of the day, and the gift of electricity and just stability that I can go into a warm house during the season, because I know that there are plenty who do not have that. So that's me. I will pass it on to the next BAC member.
How about Karen? Why don't you next?
Oh, thank you. My name is Karen Weiland. I am at the end of my third year as a BAC member, and I'm grateful for family and friends, and I have to agree, I'm thankful for a warm house, a warm home. So I will pass along to the next BAC member.
Angela, would you like to go next?
Sure. Good evening. I'm thankful that the organisation I work for is getting to do a vaccine event this week for a diverse community, including kiddos with disabilities. It feels good to have work that doesn't fix things always, but that is helpful in this difficult time.
Angela. Darren?
And I don't know who's next. So.
Hey, this is Darren. I can go ahead. This time of year, I am thankful for all of the community support for those who have less. See everyone really go out of their way to help others out. It's nice.
Greg DiLoretto, BAC member. We're talking thanks. I'm thankful that my family are still alive after a tire rolling down Interstate 80 totaled our car, and not a single. Wow.
It looks like we have Director Hollins has joined us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gary Hollins, Board Director.
We won't go, I think, and introduce all of us from OSM that are here. As briefly mentioned, I'm Rita Cresswell. I'm the Senior Director for the Office of School Organization. Also, Dan Young is our Chief Operating Officer. I'll introduce him. And the member of OSM team and the events team, including so we're going to go ahead and get started with our agenda. The first item on our agenda is program updates. Actually, stop for a minute. Public comment is the first item on our agenda. We don't have members of the public commenting. David, do you know?
Excuse me, there's somebody's phone that's on because I can't barely hear you guys. So I don't know if somebody's phone is on or was on.
I apologize. I think it's me. I will mute myself.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So no public comments. Now we'll get to the program update. Before we get too far into the program update, one of the first things that we'll be talking about are the equity numbers on the program update. And you, of course, saw those on the project updates that were in the meeting materials. Our auditors have asked us to be more clear about the constraints of the data that we get from our business equity utilization software. And so we've provided some information about the constraints. I also provided this as a separate sheet within the meeting materials on the shared folder that I sent you the link. We will share this every time, but essentially what it's telling you is we get information from payments monthly. Accurate data regarding certified business utilization is contingent on prime contractors or upper tier subs entering their subcontractors and self-reporting the monthly payments to each subcontractor in a timely and accurate manner. Our best case scenario is that the information accurately reflects contract expenditures approximately 1 to 2 months prior to the report date. If they don't enter the data in a timely way, it may not be 1 to 2 months before the report date, it may be quite a bit before it. If we do, however, get additional information, we continue to update that information in the system. So just to note very quickly, we did see a slight increase in our business equity participation rate cumulatively and over the last 12 months. As a reminder, we, within the program, are tracking a rolling 12-month of our data, as well as a cumulative from the start of the program in 2012. We're at roughly 15.71% for cumulative and 15.7% for the 12-month. Our workforce equity numbers continue to look very good. In general, the requirement is that we meet at least 20% of apprenticeship. We're at 24%, have been for quite some time. It hasn't changed. Over the last 2 years, we added some aspirational goals for minority and females in the workforce. And we are exceeding the 25% goal for minority workforce. We're at 28. For female, we're not quite at the goal yet. Kind of a ways to get there. 5% is where we are currently. The goal is 14%. Moving on to budget. We have updated our report format. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about the updated format at the end of the meeting or end of the agenda, but just some quick notes about budgets. Starting with 2012, we have been going through and cleaning up the return of unused funds from our completed projects. We currently have 2 active projects in 2012 program. That's the Grant Upperfield improvements, otherwise known as Grant Bowl, but not really in the bowl, in the upper field. And we are also doing Roosevelt Phase 4. Both of those projects, Roosevelt Phase 4 is essentially complete. We have occupancy of the space. There's some minor things being completed on it. There are some potential additional small costs related to staffing moves that we're still shaking out. The Grant Upperfields project, the budget's been pretty significantly impacted by the pandemic. And so what we've determined is that whatever contingency we have available in the 2012 program is essentially going to go to the Grant Upperfields projects. So what we've tried to show you is that the amount that's actually estimated at completion for the Grant Upperfields, how much we're over, but then the contingency allows you to see where we are against the 2012 program as a whole and how we'll make that up. If you look at the numbers, you'll see that we still need roughly $267,000. I say roughly, that number could change a little bit here and there. We anticipate using non-bond funds to make up that difference. Just as an additional note, Grant Fields project is dealing with some schedule delays due to permitting, and so we're working as quickly towards getting that project done as we can. On the 2017 budget, both Kellogg and McDaniel have essentially come in under budget. Kellogg we already knew about. McDaniel, we're still firming up the exact amount that it'll be under budget, but it's looking very good. We expect to get the $2 million back to the program that loan to McDaniel for COVID-related impacts, plus some additional. We should have more firm numbers at the next meeting, most definitely by the next time we report all the organizations. Lincoln remains on budget, and we are now showing in here the updated estimated completion for Benson, for the Benson swing sites. And then we have something unique here with MPG. So we've talked a lot about the fact that there's a bit of a split between 2017 and 2020 programs in terms of funding for Benson and MPG. MPG was fully funded in the 2020 bond, and we had already gone forward and essentially loaned money from the 2017 program for MPG to get started with the work. What we're doing right now is we're looking to move all of the expenditures and commitments from the 2017 funding to the 2020 funding. In the meantime, we're showing it split across both programs. So what you'll see in the 2017 update is the amount of funding that was available in 2017 funds. You will also see that the estimated completion does not include that money, because that money is going to go back to the program. It does include the $6,000 that's part of an ATO grant. So if you're wondering what that number is, that's why. The remainder of the MPG forecast is going to show up in the 2020. And so we'll talk about that when we get to the 2020 budget piece, but just in case you have some questions about how that's showing, we will continue to track it against both programs until we've completed the switch over to the 2020 funds. In addition to that, there are some unique things going on with the contingency, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the 2020 budget first, and then we'll talk about the contingency and how that is laid out in these, because I've made some changes in how I'm showing the contingency for both of these programs. So for the 2020 program, you can see from the budget, essentially we have a number of projects that we haven't had any expenditures or commitments on yet, so they're fairly blank. We are moving along pretty quickly with the curriculum expenditures, with the technology expenditures, and then we've also started moving along with infrastructure projects. Those projects, you will have seen project status updates for those in your meeting materials for tonight as well. So what we are showing here is essentially attempting to show the contingency that can make up the shortfalls from the budget overages for Benson and MPG. One of the challenges that we've had in the past is that when we show the contingency as being used, meaning we have allocated it to certain risks that we see out there, it ends up looking like we don't have the money to address the budget overages we have on the projects. So we essentially have above the line and below the line, but they both show as being above the line. So I'm attempting to show that by showing the amount in contingency that we need for Benson and MPG as under. I'm also showing that the 2017 bond balance is under, because that amount is going to go towards the overage that you see in 2017. And the bottom line for the program as whole, so for 2012, 2017, and 2020, should get you where we truly stand with those programs and how to make the funding. Now, I do want to note that in 2020, I do show contingency, 65 million of contingency as being used. this early in the program, I prefer to anticipate that we will use that contingency funding. Certainly that gets fine-tuned as we move further along. So it is still showing as being used, meaning it's not currently considered available for allocating to other projects. It is there to make up for risks associated with the projects that we currently have identified for the project. On the 2017, the contingency, there are things that I anticipate using contingency for. However, you're not going to see anything showing because we also anticipate getting future interest earnings. And the future interest earnings cancel out the amount that I'm trying to hold aside for some risks that we see in the 2017 program. So we talked about those before. They're related to COVID, they're related to potential cat tax, and some of those types of risks. So I'm hopeful that this will provide some clarity, but I'm certainly open to other ideas as to how that could be laid out. And before I get too far along, if anyone has questions about the budget portion, I'm happy to talk about that now before just kind of giving general comments. Okay. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to general program notes. I did know that we have hired a new person in OSM. We have a business operations analyst 1. That's essentially a data analyst who just started with us, I believe, last week, maybe at the end of last week. The days are running together. Happy to say that that person is going to be helping us with BAC reporting. So I'm personally quite excited about that. And we are still trying to move forward with our certified business program manager position. Still working with HR to get the position description posted. We are continuing to see significant pandemic-related impacts. There's no new news to that, but we just want to keep mentioning it because those impacts show up in different ways in different projects. We've certainly seen them related to Benson, as we've talked about in MPG, but we were seeing them in so many of our other projects as well, and it really varies so much depending on where the project is in the phase of delivery, what types of materials we're using, how much we're able to kind of shift around. We do anticipate that we will see impacts on schedule, particularly for our summer projects as we're trying to move forward with some of our 2020 related infrastructure projects. We have significant concerns about long lead items and our ability for contractors to get those, for us to get contractors under contract and for them to go and purchase materials that are long lead and get them in time to do construction in the summer, which is when we have schools most available for construction. So those are significant concerns. You'll probably hear more from us about those at the next couple of meetings as we start to see how they play out. After talking with Tom Peterson, co-chair of BAC, we opted not to do individual project presentations for the different health and safety and infrastructure projects. Our understanding was that the BAC wanted more time for discussion on items in particular. And so just a quick couple highlights about those projects. We did provide project status updates for you. There are a couple that we did not include because we have already closed all the projects. You already know they're closed and there's no new news. So rather than inundate you with paper that you've already seen, we simply didn't include them. That includes the fire alarms and sprinklers and also the radar. Within the others, we are moving along with asbestos projects. We are currently working through design for those. Similar to our typical process, we expect to see more decision-making about which sites will be in those closer to the spring. Paint continues to move forward, as always, year-round. Water quality continues to move forward, as always, year-round, though we have seen significant schedule delays due to pandemic impacts on water quality in particular. And we are just finishing up some things with roofing and security, just some minor work on both of those. The 2020 work is also proceeding. We're looking to address essentially urgent needs with our roofing, seismic, and mechanical projects. We did complete assessments, more detailed assessments on our roofs and our mechanical systems. That's allowing us to prioritize the work that needs to occur with the funding that we have available. And we do have several of our project managers available, either in the room or on the call, answering questions about health and safety or infrastructure projects if you have.
So I have one, and maybe I'm in the wrong spot, but I'm looking at the roof improvements. And I'm looking at the budget, and I don't understand, and I'll give the example, is middle school, it had a budget of 3.8 million, had bond funds of 3.8 million, then it had other funds of 12 million, then it has actual to date of 3.8 and estimated completion at 3.8. So I don't understand why there's.
It's a funding issue, and so one of the challenges that we run into is our budgets are made up of multiple fund sources in some cases, and what we're reporting on in that particular status update is the roof funds specifically. There are other funds that are going towards the budget as a whole, but what we're trying to report on is just the roof funds portion of it.
Right, so why, but if I look at it, none of the other funds enter into your estimate of completion. In other words, it looks like you completed all within the bond funds.
I understand it is challenging, and I've gone back and forth on how best to show that. We do show, this allows you to tie it back to the health and safety funding and allocation report. It pulls everything out by funding. But it is challenging. We show it in multiple places because it has multiple fund sources, rather than.
So if I look at this, the total roof is not going to be 56 million plus 16. Which is the sum of the bond funds plus the other funds, total expenditure.
The total expenditure at the end of the day is going to include all bond funds and all other funds, but being able to break that into a roofing category as opposed to an accessibility category is challenging.
So I can't really tell what the total roof improvement total is.
We can tell you how much we've spent on roofing based on the funding, but the project itself includes more than roofing, and therefore it includes more than one fund stream.
Okay, well, it's hard to understand the math.
It
Seems to me like it's a spreadsheet, got column A, column B.
They don't
column
always
C.
yeah, it is definitely one of the challenges.
So it's hard for me to say whether it's right or wrong, right? I mean, that was kind of our expectation in BAC is that this makes sense or doesn't. There were a couple, this wasn't the only one, that was another one too, it's the same thing. You get bond funds and you get other funds, you add them together, it's more than what you estimate to spend at the end of completion. So it looks like you got money, you got extra money, it's kind of not, that's what it looks like.
I understand, and it definitely can be confusing, but we're doing in this case where we're putting in funding as opposed to budget for the country. And so we're trying to show you how much we're spending of that funding source.
Get that. If you have a $3.8 million project, and you're going to spend $2 million of it in bonds and 1.8 in other funds, that would make sense, right? But if you have a $3.8 million project and you have 3.8 million in bonds and you have 12 million in other bonds, but you're only going to spend 3.8, then where's the 12 million going? We can talk about it later. It's not adding up for me, and I don't know maybe the other guy. If everyone else gets it up.
Happy to continue the conversation. It's always challenging. Us to present complicated information. Are there other questions related to health and safety or infrastructure projects? If they're not, I'd like to be able to let my project managers go. If everybody's okay with that, then I'll let them go and continue to write, since they don't necessarily need to be here for the review discussion. I can't see any faces on the call, so if people are nodding, I can't see you. Right. So my team can, you're related to. Thank you. So next up on the discussion is Benson. And we did provide a presentation to a combined facilities and operations and BAC meeting a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to pull out the exact date, but I can't think of it at the moment. And we are not going to re-present that at this time, but our understanding is that BAC members wanted an opportunity to discuss. And so we're providing this time to do so. So we're going to kind of turn the floor over to the BAC on this. Greg and the members on the call.
I'll start. There was I was here at the presentation a couple of weeks ago, November 17th. So I'm looking at my notes, so I don't have the presentation in front of me, but I recall that when you value engineered the project, one of the items that you cut, maybe you can explain, was the removal of a foundation drain and waterproofing the existing building. So it calls to the question, we don't have water problems in any of the existing buildings, and that seems like one of the things you wouldn't cut out of a building, was the fancy light fixtures or something. So maybe you can explain why you cut that one.
Yeah, my name is Brad Nile with Anderson Construction. I'm happy to chime in. So that was a specific item that required that we unearth existing basements, waterproof them, put in a drain line, and then re-backfill the existing basement. And it's one of those circumstances you can't inspect what's there unless you unearth it. And there currently are not any water intrusion issues. So we raised our hands and said, hey, why should we unearth what's already in its undisturbed state? Right. Seems to work. Okay. That's simple.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And then in the MPG improvement, you eliminated insulation improvements. So what was the thinking there? Weren't you insulating it to code or going beyond code or something?
Yeah, it was going beyond code. So we did a number of analysis of exterior versus interior buttons within the cavity and just look for the best balance to meet code requirements without and trying to find cost savings. So we're still meeting code and it was kind of cutting back to that.
And none of the insulation was sound insulation.
No, this was all thermal.
For higher power. My last one on estimations, but if I recall right, in order to balance the budget, we decreased the contingency in the Benson budget. But we added $43 million in contingency from the program, right? So, basically, that's kind of a money game. You don't really decrease the money, you put it right back in there, you just take it from another pot. But it does call the question, I know a couple of the BAC members have talked about it. So what does that mean for the future? If you took 43 million out of your program budget, then, you know, maybe we're gonna need it on some of these other projects, but we stuck it into this one. What was your analysis on that?
So a couple things, when you decrease the project contingency, what we're essentially saying is we're gonna take some of the money that would have held aside for potential risk, and we're gonna put it directly into the construction contract.
Okay.
So it is simply shifting money within the project, but it means that you have less money available for risk. Adding it from the program contingency means taking money from the program, which is a completely separate bucket, and putting it into the project, which then allows it to be allocated, in this case, primarily to the construction project, but to the project as well.
So we didn't, but we haven't got the math right again. We didn't really decrease the Benson's budget. We just filled it with other money, right? We get to close our $43 million gap. We closed it, you mentioned there, but then we closed it by taking contingency money from the program and putting it in there for the project. Right?
Yes, but we did actually decrease the budget prior to the contingency.
Prior to
So
what?
think of it this way, if we had had all of the money available for the full budget and we decreased the project contingency, we would need less project budget. Right? So we essentially made the project budget smaller, but we didn't have enough already, which is why we then had it. So it is two different things. It's just the use of the word contingency makes it sound like it's kind of all the same thing.
And so since we put the 7.6 in, so how are we going to deal with risk given the uncertainties that are out there? They're big.
I think that's great. I'm actually going to let Armand, and could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Armin Malazzo, Senior Project Manager for Benson. I think it's a great question, and it scares me too. But after seeing the work that our team's done, the investigation that Anderson's done, we've mitigated a lot of risk. In fact, we spent 4 days going through our risk log, and what we had, say, 5-6 months ago compared to today, night and day. We've been able to go in and investigate and pull out literally all of the guts out of a 100-plus-year-old building, and now we can see what's there. We're out digging in the dirt, cleaning the soils, we're seeing what's there. So we're at a really good point now to understand what our risk really is. And the risk that will continue forward is still the same types of risk that we had with the added risk of the market. I think that's the only one that's still an unknown, and we would have that regardless of any project, wherever you are in the country.
Thanks.
I was just going to ask, no, sorry.
Well, I was going to say the other part of your question was related to how do you address risk on other projects
Right. Yeah,
from the
because we took
program as a
43
whole, right? So if you're taking money from the program
Right,
contingency, we still have a lot of money left in program contingency. And I think that was part of the calculation that we looked at, which is looking at that budget for the 2020 bond and how I showed in negative the amount that we need to address the overage. Whatever's left that's showing in the estimated completion for contingency, that 65 million, that's still sitting there. That 65 million is available for Jefferson, which is the only modernization that will reach construction under the 2020 bond, right?
Right.
Cleveland, Ivy Wells, Roosevelt Phase 5, those are all planning and design costs only, right? So we're not going to go into construction on the bond budget. So it's Jefferson and essentially MPG, which we've already right-sized, if you will. So we have a significant amount of contingency remaining for the one really major project that we have coming up in 2020. And I think, we did put a lot of funding into contingency for 2020 because we knew that was a challenge in the 2017 and in the 2012 as well. So there was a decision made to really cover that. These types of risks, exactly this type of thing. And, you know, I think that's essentially what we're doing.
Thanks.
And then, sorry, Dan.
I was going to say the same thing. Just I thought the second part of your question about the overall program costs, and just as everyone said, for the 2020 budgeting for the program, we were intentionally very conservative how we did our program contingency, and also how we did not account for other future revenues that are going to come into the program, which we're still not accounting for, but that are out there. So, you know, we feel very confident that we have enough funds to cover all of the scope that is.
Thanks.
I don't know if we have anyone on the call that has questions.
Yes, see that on.
Hey, Marina, it's Karen.
Karen?
Hi. Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing a lot of the conversation. And I don't know if Gary, if you're having a hard time as well. But you know, when your voices trail off, can't hear a thing. But and Dick can't get on the call for some reason. And I think Derek tried to reach out to him to see if he could get it so he could get on the call. But I think I have a couple of questions. Where, and I know Brad Nile from Anderson Construction is there. So where are we in terms of the construction documents and the degree of confidence in what is currently showing as the budget for Benson and the MPG building? And then the second thing is that, you know, this probably will be a good project to look at lessons learned so that we don't, you know, hopefully will never be another pandemic again, but lessons learned about scope and budgeting, and really understanding our project in order to be able to put together, you know, a budget that has a high degree of confidence. So probably about 5 or 6 questions there or comments, but.
So, hi, this is Armin Malazzo. Okay?
I'm sorry?
This is Armin Malazzo, project manager. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, but you keep cutting in and out.
I'll try to slower so it doesn't cut out. To answer your question about where we are with the construction document, we actually just received permit approval from the city of Portland Friday. And the permit issuance is expected today or tomorrow. So that's a real big milestone for our project team. As far as confidence in the CDs and the construction documents themselves, I'm extremely confident. Again, we've spent several years, and most certainly the past 6 months, have been extremely aggressive in understanding our existing building, our entire site, not just the building. And all of that information has been put into those construction drawings by Bassetti Architects under the direction of both PPS and Anderson Construction. So we really do have the best of all worlds right now, having Anderson and their trade partner subs, as well as our design team and their consultants, all working together in a building that we're continually unraveling to understand. And now we have those in those construction documents. So confidence level there is pretty high. As a recovering architect myself, I can tell you that I'm pretty confident in what is being produced right now for documents. And the team themselves has been amazing. As far as lessons learned, you're absolutely right. First, I'd like to say thank you to the bond committee and those who put together the budgets with the contingencies of a what happens if scenario, like a global pandemic, and not knowing that many years ago, I don't think you could ask for anything better at this point to have done back in the day. We are certainly looking at and documenting all of our lessons learned, not only at Benson. We are doing that for other past projects. The Benson team is utilized many projects that OSM has done to use the lessons learned from those projects. So I think it's a continuous tool that OSM has at their disposal, and we continue to add on to that as well. I hope you can hear me okay, Karen.
Much better, thank you.
Great. Did I answer all of your questions? I know you had a couple. I believe those are the top 3.
Yeah, good.
Okay, great.
Other questions? Okay, I think we will go ahead and move on to the next topic of discussion, which was the performance auditor's final report for year 3, which they presented at the same Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. I did share a copy of the report in the meeting materials in case you did not get that from the board book materials at the committee meeting. Don't have a presentation here for it, but my understanding was that the BAC wanted an opportunity to discuss the report. And apparently nobody here wants to discuss the report.
Well, I think it's worth noting, they noted in the report about the equity issue and how the number was arbitrarily picked, I guess. And they say that this district needs to go back and have the number right and figure out a way to kind of justify or come up with how you can get to that particular number, because we keep struggling to meet it, which doesn't mean we can or can't, but it just shows that maybe we'll never meet it because the number, I don't know what the number was based on when it came to pass. And so that's one of the things they noted in their audit was that you need to go back and figure it out. So I don't know what your plan is on.
I would say, I don't know that there's necessarily a plan formalized at this point. We certainly, in sharing the report with the Facilities and Operations Committee, we did bring it to the attention of the board. The auditors recommend that they look at our goals and really think about how those goals should be structured. I haven't heard yet if that is going to be a topic of conversation coming up, but we'll certainly keep in touch with the board to find out. Beyond that, there are a number of other recommendations in there that we can continue to implement regardless of whether the structure of the goals changes or not.
Okay. And I'll just add on that, there's the audit itself references the board taking a look at the policy, but there's also the administrative directive, which is a staff document that sets some of those specific goals. And so there is an intention on a specific plan that we can roll out yet of taking a look at that. And there's comments in the audit about how do we measure our business equity goals. And right now we have one measure. Is that the right measure? And is there a way to disaggregate some of that data and potentially have different metrics that we use to measure? Some things that we know is that on certain projects or type of procurements, we do really well, and on others, we do not do as well. We know when we look at our total number of prime contracts that we've awarded in the last 5 years, almost a third of them have gone to certified businesses, and a third of them have gone to our subcontracted. So we're actually going down multiple tiers, but those are often on smaller projects and not on larger projects. So I think we're getting more sophisticated in just looking at one number for everything and be able to say, we've got data, we've got information, we can start taking that to the next level and becoming more and more sophisticated. So that's a lot of the conversations that we're having right now, but you're right, we don't have that specific plan.
When you look at them, does it seem that they go to the same people all the time? All over the board, or?
I don't think so. And I say when we looked at, a third of our prime contracts, I think it's 31%, I think it's less. over the last 5 years have gone to certified businesses. That really spans the gamut of construction and our design services, our bond projects and our non-bond projects. So certainly we see, some firms, repeating, and we've got a lot of good work with them. But that's, I don't want to shoot from the hip, the number of contracts, but that is a lot of contracts over the number of years. And so it really does spread the problem.
And I think it's fair to say that, and when we see repeat business, if you will, from regardless of whether they're certified or not, we have folks that get into kind of a groove of, hey, we really like working with BPS. We're going to continue to propose on their projects or bid on their projects because this is, we're used to them. Like we're used to this particular entity. So we do see that kind of repetitive business. I don't think it's specific to certified businesses. That said, we're always looking to increase the number of folks that are proposing projects. So.
Marina, it's Karen. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I actually think that was, well, so I was on the call and I heard the discussion and the report, and I think that was basically what a lot of the question was about, was the statements that they made on how the percentages were, or how that the percentage was just an overall percentage and how that came about, as opposed to what you're talking about with maybe there being subdivisions of percentages that may be more reflective of what the actual market has. And the fact that you're competing against so many other projects for those minority businesses, or those certified minority businesses or women-owned businesses, and that there's just so much work and there's only so much to spread around. So I think that was, at least from what I got, I think that was the majority of some of the concern anyway about the audit report. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we probably do more work in what our goals are. What is it that we're truly attempting to do? Are we attempting to spread across multiple firms? Are we attempting to grow firms? Are we attempting to focus on particular areas that are underserved? I think we need to actually take the time to think through what we want to do and then find ways to create goals or requirements or measuring practices that support those particular interests. The 18% is easy, meaning to say it's a simple, like, here's 18%, now just go do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really get at the heart of what we're attempting to do. So, there's a lot of discussion that could still occur about, do we really focus on small certified businesses? Do we focus on growing businesses through tiers of work? Are we looking to get it out to as many as possible? And if so, our goals should really be different. They should be structured very differently. And I think those are conversations that we need to have over the coming months to really think through thoughtfully where we want to go with the goals for certified participation. Or even if it is certified business, or if there's self-certifications of those things that the auditors want as well.
Right. Yeah.
So this is Kenichi, and I'll just jump in because this is my kind of daily living. I love the intentionality that's going behind the structuring of the goals. I would say with that work is, once it's defined on where you want to play, it's the outreach and capacity development and capacity building work that goes into it. Because I think if you are looking to reach, the 18%, to Karen's point, there is a pool of ready-made contractors who can fit in and do that work. but then there is a pool of contractors, there's an abundance actually, of contractors who are looking to do work, but will require capacity development. And that's why you see several agencies pairing their goals with assistance for the contractors in order to ensure that they meet those goals. Because again, we're building, we want to build equitably, and what does it mean for PPS in doing that work, and how do we really show up? Because if we say, and one of the things that I would like to kind of commend this team for is, as we have raised this topic as important, I'm seeing more discussions around it. The numbers are inching, a little higher every time we look at it. If this board and if this committee really states, hey, this is important, I think there are several vehicles that other agencies have used that could be powerful for PPS to lean into. But you're absolutely right, Marina. It's deciding where it is that you want to focus in on and growing deep within that space to get to those percentages that you've outlined.
Thank you, Kenichi. Any of our other BAC members would like to jump in, or Director Hollins?
I'm make a quick comment. So I think, and it was brought up in the audit report as well, as far as, like Marina said, defining what we want to do and planning a path forward in that realm. It was also talked about, the board really setting policy or direction that we want to see it go in as well. So, I mean, like I said, the conversations are great. We've been having conversations about this for years and years and years. So I think now it's just the time to really put those conversations into actual actionable items. And I think that's kind of, where everyone is heading towards at this time. But most of them just really just listening and hearing what everyone is saying.
Thank you, Director Hollins. I think I want to note too that even though the first two recommendations of the report were very focused on those higher goals, the rest of the recommendations related to business equity in the report are things that we can do regardless of whether we change the goals or not. And I think those are the actionable items. They are the things that we're held accountable for. You're certainly going to see our responses to those recommendations through the performance audit tracker that we provide you with at every meeting. You can see with each of those trackers, we of course identify what the status is for any recommendations that are not complete yet. So you can see incrementally as we're going through and trying to figure out how to implement specific recommendations. But you can also see as we go through and implement them, what we've done to complete the recommendations. All of that is shared in the report too. So we're definitely not going to just have conversations. We are most definitely going to be implementing recommendations and putting things in place to address what came from the report. And it's exciting work. I would love to see the rest of the structural piece happening very action-oriented as well, but we will certainly move forward regardless of whether that overarching goal changes or not.
And there's also to be noted too, I think and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, we're supposed to be bringing in some country-specific organizations to help us digest the audit and help us with some actions and stuff moving forward, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, that is correct. That we have, it's happening outside of OSM because it's focused more district-wide and other procurement rules. It is going to be referencing specifically this performance audit. Yes, that work is going forward as well.
That's really great to hear. I would love to figure out where and how that conversation is going on. PBDG is a culturally specific and responsive organization that does that work for other agencies as well. And so we would definitely like to ensure that we're part of that conversation.
Kenichi, I will connect you with our department that is focusing on that work.
Perfect.
I think if we don't have any further comments, I'd be happy to move us on to the next topic on the agenda. The easy topic, which is, how did you like the new formats? We're gonna finish the evening on an easy note. We continue to revise the reporting formats. We have, for those of you that saw the reports back in 2020 and could kind of compare them to the reports that we brought forward in 2021, this is somewhere in the middle. So 2020 was a lot of detail. 2021 is less detail. So we're moving into 2022. Maybe we're adding a little more detail back, but not as much as we had before. But happy to keep getting comments if you don't have anything tonight specifically.
I want to go back to the question about roofing because I was looking at the report. It took me a minute to find that line. And I just want to make sure if it was clear. So the budget and the funding for the roofing are $3.7 million. The other funding is unrelated to roofing.
Is what?
Unrelated to roofing.
Oh, the 12 million is unrelated to roofing?
Correct.
Yes.
Well, then why does it show up under roofing?
Because the project as a whole has.
Oh.
So the big project, a piece of it was bond roofing.
Oh.
A bunch of it was unrelated.
Well.
So that might make it worse, not better, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it makes it worse in the sense that I don't even know why it's there. Or if it is going to be there, the sum of what you expect to spend should be the 12 million, should be the total amount.
Right.
Roofing and those other improvements, then I wouldn't think anything of it, except think, well, you're over budget by 12 million bucks, but it came from other funds.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have a little note at the bottom that says that.
Yeah.
So it probably ought to add up, because otherwise, that's why I couldn't, that wasn't the only one, there were several, but I left my notes at home, took off tonight, so I didn't have the other ones. But there were some other ones like that as well, so I did it now.
Yeah, a great example one is the Hayhurst project. That's 1.7 million for roofing, but it's got 2.5 million.
Yeah.
That was a grant for site.
Okay, well, okay.
So yeah, I think we'll figure out that right.
Yeah, just a
Right
note,
now.
says this one was
Yeah.
more than just roofing, but we put it all under the roofing improvements.
Well, most of our roofing projects are more than just roofing.
They
And
are?
in 2017 in particular, but yes, that is frequently the case. We have multiple fund sources. And those fund sources can be grants, they can be seismic grants, they can be ETO grants, they can be funding that came from the non-bond funded capital construction side of the house for various reasons. Maybe it's work that wouldn't be considered compensable under bond, or maybe it's work that they started and we completed. We get all kinds of additional funding sources. Sometimes it comes directly from school budgets, sometimes it comes from grants that they've received for things. So it is complex, and it's hard to know how to present it in a way that every number adds up to something that makes sense. Because we're showing parts and pieces of different things.
It just didn't on that. Because it looked like you. So, okay, now I get it. Thanks. So I got one thing for her, just general talk.
We're certainly topics. There's
This one isn't just. Well, it's a little bit like stuff, but it's a little bit. As most of you know, the last 8 years I spent structured funding. all over the country. It's on television. There's a whole lot of stuff. Organization, actual, and my organization is responsible for that. America's infrastructure is doing, and we have 17 categories. One of them is schools. And every category money out of. So my question probably would be, you guys are going after quote unquote school.
Yeah. Into that. It's all still pretty fresh, but there's lots of information, and so we're absolutely looking into that as much as possible.
Oh, good. Hope you get your share.
Yeah, hope we get a lot of it.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions from BAC members on the call? So our next meeting is scheduled for January 26th. That's in the new year, but it's really not that far away. So we look forward to seeing your smiling faces either in person or on the.
Do we have a year calendar?
Not all. Put them up, but what we can do is send them out.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we do that.
So Marina,
Yes.
are you, do we have the ability to meet on site if we keep social distancing and wear masks? For anybody who is comfortable doing that?
I'm
Or not?
Because I'm not familiar with the most recent requirements for schools. So we hit up against a school issue with vaccination requirements.
Oh, I'm sorry. We said on site. You mean at a school site?
So I got about a third of what you guys just said. That's the problem is that I don't catch all of the, I hear about maybe a third of the conversation. That's a problem.
Well, Karen, I'm here tonight at headquarters. You come here, we're meeting here at the school district headquarters. And just wear your mask.
Short answer, yes. And meet on site.
I'm sorry, Dan, can you repeat that?
Yes, and meet on site, in person.
Okay. So then in January, will you give us an option as to whether or not if one wants to participate in person or if they want to participate on a Zoom call, that we will have that option to do that?
We will
Karen.
set that up. If we have more challenges trying to do that at school sites than we do here at the BESC.
Okay.
Right? It is definitely much easier for us to coordinate that here at the BESC than when we do our school sites, but we will certainly look to see if we can make that happen.
Okay, thanks.
And if there's nothing else, Kenichi, I think you can adjourn us.
Great. Thank you for the conversation, everyone, today. It was great to learn about all the progress, and certainly I'm very excited personally to hear about the work that's going into the audit findings, and just excited about what 2022 will bring for this group, and certainly all the bonds. So it is about 6:38, and hearing no additional comments, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.